the KIP Project. My name is Charlotte Karam. I'm the Associate Dean of the Business School and the Director of the KIP Project. I would like to invite my dear colleague Bilal, Dr. Bilal Orfali, to start the session. He will be overseeing the session and introducing everyone. Thank you.
Good morning. Welcome everyone to this event hosted by the Knowledge is Out KIP Project and the Department of Arabic and Eastern Languages. I thank our team and especially Dr. Charlotte Karam for making this event happen. My name is Bilal Orfali and I'm the chair of the Department of Arabic. And I have the pleasure to be moderating this session with the world-renowned writer and novelist, Dr. Nawal El Saadawi. With me on the stage is Dr. Hosn Abboud, also from the Department of Arabic. Dr. Hosn will be in conversation with Dr. Saadawi about issues related to violence, including sexual harassment and other notions of gender or sex-based discrimination. An event hosted by the Department of Arabic and the Business School is of course not unusual at an institution that fosters interdisciplinary research such as UB. Gender violence has received increasing attention from scholars and the general public alike, and is currently a rich area for interdisciplinary research by people from different walks of life committed to creating a non-violent world. We at KIP share this commitment, and in this spirit, please join me in welcoming our distinguished keynote speaker, Dr. Nawal El Saadawi.
صباح الخير. أهلا وسهلا بالدكتورة نوال السعداوي. شرفتينا. She's a dear person to every female Arab woman who grew up in my generation. And I'm sure she will stay with us for the centuries. Dr. Nawal El Saadawi, born in 1931, is an Egyptian physician, leading feminist, writer, and activist. In 1955, she graduated from the Faculty of Medicine at Cairo University. She practiced general medicine and psychotherapy in both the countryside and the city. She confronted and studied all types of aggressions committed legally or illegally with good or bad intentions against women's bodies. As a consequence of the publishing of her book, Women and Sex, المرأة والجنس, as well her political activities, Saadawi was dismissed from her position at the Ministry of Health. Nawal El Saadawi was the first feminist who scientifically and publicly addressed the psychological health of women in the 3 years she spent researching women and neurosis at Ain Shams University's Faculty of Medicine from 1973 to 1976. This research is published in her work, المرأة والصراع النفسي. In 1976, it was also translated into Women and Neurosis. Nawal El Saadawi is a prolific writer. All her writings are in Arabic, and most of them are translated into many European languages. Some of her writings include short stories, like her story تعلمت الحب in 1957, plays, like her play 12 امرأة في زنزانة 1984, personal memoirs, مذكراتي في سجن النساء, memoirs in a woman's prison 1983, autobiography, سيرة ذاتية in 3 parts, أواقي حياتي part 1, part 2 and part 3, published by Dar al Beirut, and novels, many of them, like the one we read, Woman at Point Zero, امرأة عند نقطة الصفر, 1975. Her feminist work, fiction and non-fiction, has been translated into over 20 languages. In Al Saadawi's corpus, as Fatwa Marty Douglas maintains, quote, "The social power of the physician merges into that of the writer," unquote. In my opinion, if Virginia Woolf's A Rose of One's Own, written in 1929, and Simone de Beauvoir's Le Deuxième Sexe, written in 1949, are considered the Magna Carta of English and French feminisms, Nawal El Saadawi's Woman and Sex, written in 1972, is the Magna Carta of Arab feminism. Clap, please. In this work, Al Saadawi spoke scientifically and in Arabic for the first time about the female body and sexuality, and uncovered gender hypocrisy and bias in social laws and norms. أهلا وسهلا فيك يا دكتور. The sensitive issues on sexuality, which harm women's physical, psychological, and moral health, were raised for the first time in the Arab world by Dr. Al Saadawi in the 70s. In her pioneering book, Al-Mar'a wal-Jins, Woman and Sex. In 1971, you published Woman and Sex, the first of a series of books in which you attacked the aggressions carried out against women's bodies. Not just female circumcision, but also the rituals associated with society's fixation with virginity. In this regard, I want to start the conversation with a few questions on premarital sex, female circumcision, khitan, the veil, al-hijab, and sexual harassment, al-taharrush al-jinsi. We start with premarital sex. You said, the only way to stop a girl from having sex before marriage is to teach her the correct values, not by cutting her sex organs, unquote. Do you think premarital sex is more accepted now than in the 70s? What are the correct values, clearly? What are the lessons about sex that we are better off teaching our youth today than we did in the 70s?
Well, thank you very much for this introduction and for being here. I'm very happy. Oh, I hate microphones. They make some echo.
No.
So you can't hear well, especially when you are dealing with a foreign language. Not the Arabic, my mother tongue. Anyway, and that's why I need also to read the question so that I can really think about it. Yes, but I got your point. Yeah. Well, the point is, yes, the point is, the problem is sexuality. Always. The problem is sexuality. Whenever we speak about women, there is no problem of sexuality in the relation, in the life of them. When we speak about men, we never speak about sexuality or virginity. They don't have a virgin, a hymen. But every time we mention women, the problem of sexuality comes. Why? We need to ask ourselves why sexuality is always connected with women and not with men. Because Men are doing sex all the time. But nobody speaks about that. They have premarital sex, marital sex, post-marital sex. But nobody mentioned it. Nobody discussed it. So my first question, why? This is very important, because unless we separate between women and sexuality, between women and bodies, women are considered just a body, or a sex organ, or a sex commodity, or anything related to sex. And now the question pre-marital sex, what we teach the youth. I think that the youth teach us. The youth teach us. Young people in Egypt, men and women, they do sex all the time. All the time. With hymen, no hymen. They can do some little operation and repair the hymen. They can have abortion. They can have pills, contraceptive pills. So they know their way. And they have contact with a lot of young people in Egypt, men and women, girls and boys. They do sex all the time. All the time. Yes.
You said the only way to stop a girl from having sex before marriage. A girl from having sex before marriage is to teach her the correct values, not by cutting her sex organs. What are these values?
The values?
Yes, teach,
That's the values. This is related to chastity, related to virginity, related that a man should marry a virgin, not marry a girl without a hymen. All that. We inherited that from history. So we have to go back to history and ask why. Why the hymen? It has such a very high value. Do you have a copy? Yes, I have to speak. I think, why don't we? Can you fix it? Because when I talk, I like to be natural, you know. So if I fix my hand like that, I like to be free.
I think my question was, we are relating the
Can you put it in front of you? Yes.
You have contrasted values, the correct values, not by cutting her sex organs. You have contrasted this issue of values, correct values, versus cutting sex organs, female circumcision. So, correct values in a way, these are the protection against any repercussions from premarital sex.
But even, because you may have your clitoris intact, not cut. What's that? Because cutting, of course, FGM and cutting, especially the clitoris, is very, very damaging to the sexual ability of women. But still, there are many, many women that they have their clitoris, and as if the clitoris is absent. So we have to discuss why history, why patriarchy wanted to get rid of the clitoris of women and to do female genital mutilation, and why you teach values that can replace FGM. You understand? Because there are many, many women who are very inhibited by values and by education and by culture, to the extent that they are exactly like the women who had FGM. Did I get it?
Yes, thank you very much. We go to the second question. In Lebanon, we have a female government minister of administrative development, Dr. Inaya Azzuddin, and she happens to wear a headscarf. We have many community leaders and student leaders in the Arab world who who also chose to wear the veil. What are your current views on covering? Do you still think the veil is an obstacle against women's freedom, education, or work?
The veil, where it is from? The veil, yes. Exactly like FGM. Okay. This is better. Okay. The veil. Why women were veiled in history? I would like to discuss the origin of the veil. Why women are veiled and men are not veiled? What's the function of the veil? The veil hides the woman from the man. But the man is not hiding from her, so a man cannot look at me, but I can look at the man. So the veil is having a very big issue in the world. The veil covering women in niqab, burkino, what's called burqa, burkino, and all that. All the time we are fussy, we are discussing covering women, faces, heads. It's like, wow, we have to ask ourselves in history why women are veiled and men are not veiled. I don't want to answer your question directly, of course. Yeah.
Thanks to your effort to raise consciousness over violence against female body and sexuality, female circumcision in Egypt is now illegal, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's illegal.
Which one? This one.
It's now illegal. Explain how you link.
Female circumcision.
Explain how you link female circumcision, khitan, and the veil, al-hijab, to class and slavery and patriarchy, not to Islam or the Arab world or Africa.
The veil and female circumcision and all types of oppression of women has nothing to do with any religion. Yes. Has nothing to do with any religion. Islam or Christianity or even Judaism. Because if you study religions, if you study the Old Testament or the New Testament or Quran and compare and see where are the values that really related to the veil? It's not in Islam, not in the Quran, not in the New Testament. It is mentioned somehow in the Old Testament. So we can say that veiling of women is a very, very old habit that started in the slave system even before Judaism. Because Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, the three monotheistic religions, were started in a slave society. And all slave values were reflected on those three religions, including veiling of women, class oppression, patriarchal oppression, oppression of women, the story of Eve, the condemning of knowledge, because women were, it was not only women that were condemned, knowledge itself was condemned. So, but usually they link the veil to Islam. Why? Why they link the veil to Islam? Though women, when they go to the Vatican, they cover their heads. When Hillary Clinton went to the Vatican, she covered her head. Nuns are veiled. But they didn't. It is political. The veil is a political issue. It's not a sexual issue. It's not a sexual issue. Female genital mutilation is a political issue. The veiling of women is a political issue. It's not related to religion, Islam or Christianity or Judaism. It's related to the social, political, class, to class issues. And we have to go back in history to understand why all these value systems still continue till today. And not only continue, they are increasing with the revival of the most fanatic, religious, Jewish, Christian, Islamic, Buddhist, Hindu religions, with this so-called fundamentalist issues. With the revival of those religions, all those values came back. When I was a student in the medical college during the 50s, there was not a single student in the university covered, not a female student was veiled. We were all unveiled. When Sadat came to power during the 70s, and then Mubarak during the 80s, and then Morsi and all that, 80% of students were veiled. So why this change? It's political. Why Islam now is used? Why the Daesh and all this phenomena of religious fundamentalism and killing under the name of Islam and all that? What's this new phenomena? What is it? It is political. It's economic. It's related to the system, to the class system, to the capitalist, patriarchal system. We shouldn't, yes. Mm-hmm. We have many questions.
In Lebanon, we implement Law 293 قانون حماية النساء وسائر أفراد الأسرة من العنف الأسري. I repeat, in Lebanon, we implement Law. Law 293 to protect women against domestic violence decades after Dr. Nawal Al Saadawi raised the issue in her Women and Sex and in her work at the Ministry of Health. Why do you think it took so long for any legislator to address the issue of violence against women, and why do you think it is important to address violence inside the home? What makes violence inside the family more important than violence in public?
No. English is okay. But I have a problem with
What makes What makes violence more inside the family more important than violence in public?
Though we cannot separate between public and private, the personal is political. You cannot separate your private life from public life. But why? What makes violence inside the family more important than violence in public? The whole issue of the family is related to women. Anything related to women is exaggerated. Anything related to men is the society will give everything. But anything related to women, to the family, to reproduction, to sexuality is exaggerated. That's why the veil is exaggerated. FGM is domestic violence. Everywhere I go, they say domestic violence. But you cannot separate domestic violence from political, global violence. It's part of it. Aggression of men in the family, rape in the family is not separated from political rape and economic rape in colonialism and capitalism. You cannot separate them. We cannot separate the local from the global. But we exaggerate. Everywhere I go, they say domestic violence. Rape, women are raped, women are raped. The whole world is raped. We are raped.
The KIP Project and the current conference focus on sexual harassment and the importance of legislation against this form of violence. In your opinion, is sexual harassment a private or a public issue?
It is private and public. You cannot separate it. And even it's more public. Everything is public. Everything is political. Sexuality is political. This water in front of me is political. Because there are millions of people who do not have this water, who cannot have it. So everything is political. Whenever you have two persons in a room, there is politics, because there is power, relationship. Even in the bedroom, between the husband and the wife, only in the bedroom, it's political. Who will have power? Who will be above and who will be below? It is power. It is power relations in the bedroom. And it's part of the whole power in the world. And unless we connect the very, very domestic, private, family issues with the very, very political, economic, social, historical, religious, we cannot understand why women are oppressed or why women are raped. We cannot understand it. So this link is very important.
You taught at the Department of Women's Study and English Literature at key American universities on the topic of creativity and rebellion, al-ibda' wal-thawra. Years before the Egyptian Revolution of 2011, ثورة يناير 2011, was foreseen, did the youth, men and women of يناير, ثورة يناير, or January Revolution contact you?
I have another question. Did the youth, men and women so you looked this? Okay. Yeah, good.
Did the youth, men and women of January Revolution contact you? What was your message for the struggle on gender within this revolution? Is there a specific message for women of a rebellion? What about the experiences of harassment of women during the protests and rebellion? We can take one after.
Yes, I got it well. There was exaggeration of sexual harassment in Tahrir Square. I was there most of the time. And we were sleeping under tents in Tahrir Square in January and in February, before Mubarak resigned and after. And there was not a single sexual harassment when the revolution was there. I remember we were living under tents, and girls and boys, young women, old men, and different ages, different sexes, different classes, were sleeping in the same tent in Tahrir Square. I remember a young woman was sleeping, and she was uncovered while she was sleeping. So a man covered her during the night. And we were leaving our bags like that. I used to throw my bags like that and to sleep. And nothing, nobody stole anything. No girl was touched. But then, when Al-Majlis al-Askari, when the military council under Tantawi started to control, and the police started to shoot people, to shoot young men and women, then the sexual harassment started in Tahrir Square. So that this was the starting of the abortion of the revolution. The real revolution, the revolutionary young men and women were very serious, very polite, very committed to the goals of the revolution. But once the counter-revolution started to breathe and to have power and to gain power through the police, and we started to have blood in the streets, then women, young women who were in Tahrir Square or in other streets were sexually harassed. They were not sexually harassed by the revolutionary young women, no. They were sexually harassed by policemen disguised. البلطجية. So, yes.
Is there a specific message for women of a rebellion?
Is there what?
A specific message for women of a rebellion? You have any message to
For women of rebellion?
Yes.
I don't have messages, in fact. I don't have messages, but what I would say to revolutionary people, we learn from each other. We learn. I believe in mutual knowledge, mutual education. I was learning from young people in Tahrir Square, from their experience, because they are much younger than me. That's why we had seminars in Tahrir Square. So we learn from each other. So we have messages for each other. But me to give them a message, I usually don't.
Dr. Nawal El Saadawi, you never taught at any Arab university. Thank you for joining us at AUB. You taught for years at key American universities, starting in 1993 at Duke University and ending in 2012 at Michigan University. In your view, why haven't you been invited to teach at any Arab universities?
Of course, no Arab university invited me to go and teach. and especially in Egypt, even when I came back to Egypt, because I lived in exile many years under Mubarak, and so when I came back to Egypt in 2009, I went back for good. I made a declaration. I said, I am ready to teach the same course which I taught in universities outside Egypt, creativity and dissidence and women. I'm ready to teach this course for nothing, not to be paid, in the Egyptian universities. And they said, no, we don't want her. They don't want. No, they don't really. Because it is very dangerous, even in the United States. I tell you, one of the universities in Missouri State, I wrote a contract. I signed a contract with the Dean of Literature that I teach the same course, creativity and dissidence and women. And she accepted, the Dean, and I signed. And then they invited me to give a talk. And the president of the university was there. She was sitting in the front row with other professors and then the students. And after I gave the lecture, he asked the dean, he said, she's too dangerous. This topic is too dangerous. And he said, no, we cannot have her. And the students were very much disappointed. Why when you teach creativity, dissidence, and women, you become dangerous? And this is the point. Because creativity is based on one very important thing, the ability to link. I am a medical doctor by training. Why should I write novels or fiction? Why? Is there any relation between medicine and literature? I studied history. Is there any relation between history and medicine? Is there any relation? I spent 10 years of my life comparing religions to each other. Is there any relation between religion and medicine or literature? Creativity is the ability to re-educate yourself, to undo what education did to you.
Last question, because we have to leave the floor for the students. But did Nawal al Saadawi, the writer, make peace with Nawal al Saadawi, the doctor?
I never had a conflict, in fact, between my body, my mind, and spirit since I was a child. And that's why I'm here. This split, this conflict between ourself, our body, this conflict between the physical, the body, and the mental, the mind, and the spiritual is forced. And it's forced on us by religions, religious education. What is spirituality? When I was in Duke University, some of my female students were so happy, and they told me, no, we are not religious. We are having a group of spirituality. We are doing spirituality. And I told them, what's the difference? What do you mean by spirituality? You separate between your spirit and your body and your mind. So they were trapped. Those young feminists were trapped in what is called spirituality. The oppression of women lies at the core of this split between the body, the mind, and the spirit. Creativity means to integrate, that you don't have a conflict between yourself. You don't have a conflict between your body and mind. When you read literature, you find that many novels deal with this conflict, that how your body needs something, desires something, but your mind desires something else. Or your spirit is related to God or to religion and is much more higher. So my question is that I have no comment.
This question was raised because we want to thank you for merging your medicine into your writing. This is why we benefited, because Dr. Nawal Saadawi was a feminist physician, and she merged all her experiences and her issues in her writing. You proved it that there was no split between Dr. Nawal Saadawi as a physician and Dr. Nawal Saadawi as a writer. Thank you very much, and we turn
Dr. Saadawi, thank you again. We have a few questions.
مشكلة الميكروفون بقى لو تيجي قريب وتسأل. لا بالانجليزي او العربي نو بروبلم بس دونت يوز ذا مايك.
أكيد أنا سعيد بهذا الشيء من الدائرة العربية. دكتورة نوال السعداوي، عندنا بعض الأسئلة. السؤال الأول، ماذا كان حلمك عندما كنت طفلة؟
Oh my God. ماذا كنت أحلم وأنا طفلة؟ You can hear me? Yes. كنت أحلم. I was dreaming. How many do not understand Arabic? How many? I don't. How many? Because I so no problem. Okay. Because they told me I speak in Arabic and there is simultaneous translation. Okay. My dream when I was a child. حلم حياتي وأنا طفلة كنت أن أكون راقصة. وأظن يعني معظم الأطفال صديقاتي وأصدقائي في المدرسة وإحنا صغيرين كنا نرقص وكنا نحب الرقص بشيء طبيعي لأن وإحنا أطفال بنحرك الجسم والعقل والروح مع بعض وهو ده الإبداع. يعني لما تشوفي راقصة بترقص حلو اعرفي إنها بترقص بعقلها وبترقص بجسمها وبترقص بروحها كلهم في وحدة واحدة فترقص جميل جدا مختلف. أي حد يشتغل بعقله وجسمه وروحه يعمل عمل بس. حلم حياتي كنت أكون راقصة ولكن ده كان ممنوع لأن أسرتي طبعا ولو أنها متقدمة ولكن تقليدية. فقلت طيب ألعب مزيكا، ألعب بيانو أو مزيكا، ولكن الأسرة كانت فقيرة وكان لازم اشتري بيانو فما اشتروليش بيانو فما تركت الموسيقى. ثم بدأت أحب الكتابة. بدأت أكتب وأنا عمري 9 سنوات. 9 سنوات لأن بدأت أكتب وكان عندي مفكرة في الطفولة. وأول رسالة كتبتها وأنا طفلة إلى الله، ولكن سأخبركم عن هذه الرسالة بالنسبة لسؤال آخر.
شكرا. السؤال الثاني اللي ما هي النصيحة التي تودين أن تقدميها للناشطات النسويات الذين يطمحن أن يغيرن مجتمعاتهن؟ ما هي النصيحة؟ وما هي المطبات التي تريدين أن تحذريهن منها؟
من خبرتي أنا عندي 86 سنة، كانت 86 سنة. ولا أحب نصائح، لا أحب نصائح لأن المفروض أن أؤمن بالتبادل في المعرفة وأتعلم من الصغار ومن الكبار وما إلى ذلك. ولكن إذا أردت أن أقول شيء من خبرتي للشابات اللي بيهتموا بقضية المرأة، أقول لا تفصلي بين قضية المرأة والقضايا الاجتماعية والاقتصادية والسياسية. قضية المرأة قضية سياسية من الدرجة الأولى ولا تفصليها أبدا. لا تتكلمي عن الاغتصاب الجنسي دون الحديث عن الاغتصاب الاقتصادي والسياسي والاجتماعي والديني. لازم من هذا الربط. ولكن بكل أسف التعليم الجامعي سواء في أوروبا أو أمريكا أو بلادنا العربية دائما يفصل، لا يريد، لأن هذا الوصل خطير يحدث ثورة على طول. الإبداع يحدث ثورة. الربط بين روافد المعرفة، الربط بين العلم والفن، بين الدين والسياسة، بين الأخلاق والاقتصاد، هذا الربط يحدث ثورة في أي مجتمع. فأنا أنصح أو أقول للشابات اللي بيعملوا في مجال المرأة أو أي مجال، في الطب، في الهندسة، في أي مجال، لابد من الربط بين العلوم وبين الفنون.
شكرا. ما هو موقفك من المثلية الجنسية؟
يعني برضه التركيز على الجنس يعني يهمني انا يهمني ايه؟ يهمني ايه حد يجي يسالني يقول لي انت هوموسيكسوال ولا هيتروسيكسوال؟ سؤال غريب قوي. هما مالهم؟ يعني انا عايزه اقول موضوع الجنس ده موضوع سياسي، مش جنس كده لوحده، موضوع سياسي، وموضوع المثلية الجنسية موضوع سياسي. فإحنا لابد أن نقاوم هذا الاتجاه وأن نحرر الجنس من هذا الهوس الجنسي اللي موجود طول الوقت، وكل إنسان حر.
دكتورة السعداوي، إذا دعوناك لتعيين مساق أو صف يعني أو سيمينار هنا في الجامعة الأمريكية في بيروت، هل تقبلين؟
يس. هتدفعوا قد إيه؟
مساحة من الحرية.
أيوه أنا، لا أنا، أنا مش
قررت أن تشاركي القراء بحياتك، سيرة حياتك وتفاصيلها في كتاب أوراق حياتك.
أوراق حياتك.
أوراق حياتك، هل ندمتِ على ذلك؟ هل ندمتِ على مشاركة خصوصيات حياتك مع القراء؟
لا الندم خطير. أهو ده بقى اللي أحذركم منه. لا تندموا. أنا عملت أخطاء العالم كلها. عملت جميع الآثام والأخطاء في العالم. وهكذا أصبحت. الإنسان لا يتعلم إلا من الغلط. يقوم يتعلم ويكبر ولا يكرره ويفهم، ولكن لا يندم. الندم يحطم الإنسان أبدا. فإن الواحد يغلط يقول أنا غلطت ليه؟ ويدرس الأسباب الغلط، إيه الخسارة اللي جات لي، ويتعلم ثم يتقدم ويرقى، لكن لا يندم أبدا. لم أعرف الندم، لم أعرف.
دكتورة السعداوي، وأنت طفلة ماذا كتبت إلى الله؟
طيب كويس. ما أعرفش مين قرأ شيء عن رسالة قريتها. أنا لما كنت طفلة، وده مهم أوي أيضا الإبداع، ذاكرة إن الإنسان لا ينسى الطفولة أبدا. يعني يبقى في ربط بين الطفولة والشباب والكهولة، يعني يبقى مسيرة الحياة متصلة، مش الواحد بقى يكبر ويعجز ويقول لا أنا لسه بعمل حاجات طفولية، ومهم قوي الواحد يحتفظ بالطفولة دي. فأنا طفلة كان لي أخ أكبر مني بسنة، فكان بيحظى بكل الميزات، مع إن أسرتي متحررة نسبيا، لكن هو كولد ياخد كل حاجة. فأنا كنت بصور بغضب، وكنت بسأل ليه هو بياخد الميزات مع إن أنا في المدرسة متفوق عنه. يعني هو كسول متدلع لأنه ولد، فمش بيذاكر وبيلعب، فكان بيسقط وأنا بطلع الأولى، وهو بياخد في العيد ضعف العيدية بتاعته. فطبعا كنت بسأل ليه كده؟ فأبويا وأمي يقعدوا يقولوا أصل ولد وبنت، أقول لهم يعني إيه ولد؟ يقولوا لي أصل هو ولد. وبعدين لما زهقوا خالص قالوا لي ربنا قال كده. ربنا قال كده. فأنا بقى كانت جدتي قالت إن ربنا هو العدل. جدتي الفلاحة، انتوا لاحظوا كتير جدا من الفلاحين ما قروش، الانجيل ولا القران ولا حاجه، لكن يقول لك ربنا هو العدل، عرفوا بالعقل. يعني الفلاحين يقولوا كده. فجدتي كانت دايما تقول ربنا هو العدل، عرفوا بالعقل، وتتحدى العمده. فانا وانا عمري 5 سنوات مخي لقط الجمله ربنا هو العدل وعرفوه بالعقل. فانا بقى رحت اوضتي وجبت ورقه وقلم وكتبت جواب لربنا. قلت له يا رب انت مفروض انت العدل، زي ما جدتي قالت لي انت العدل. فليه بتفرق بين اخويا وانا؟ رغم ان انا بشتغل في البيت وفي المدرسه وبنجح وهو بيسقط. ليه؟ بعدين وانا بس وبعدين قلت له يا ربنا اذا ما كنتش هتبقى عادل، لانك انت المفروض العدل، اذا ما كنتش هتبقى عادل انا مش هقدر اؤمن بك، مش هقدر اامن بيك. ده في الجواب. وبعدين طبعا ما عرفش اودي الجواب فين، مش عارفه. طبعا خبيت الجواب، حرقته، بقيت خايفه، ولكن كتبت الجواب، وهذا الجواب ظل في ذاكرتي طول عمري، ولعب دور في تطور عقلي لما درست حتى الاديان بقى دراسه علميه. هذا الجواب ظل بيديني الشجاعه ان انا اناقش ربنا. وهم لازم تشجعوا الاطفال انهم يناقشوا ربنا ويناقشوا الظلم تحت اسم الدين، لان احنا لو تخلصنا من الظلم تحت اسم الاديان وتحت اسم الدين هنتخلص من حاجات كتير قوي قوي قوي. فده
لدينا سؤالات من الجمهور ناخذهما مباشرة. من يحب أن يسأل؟
بس يجي هنا بقى، تعالوا هنا.
There's 3 questions.
تعالي انتي اهلا وسهلا.
أول شيء
اسألي بقى.
لقد أحببناك كاتبة باللغة العربية ومدافعة عن المرأة العربية، فبدي أحكي باللغة العربية I'm so sorry of those who didn't understand the Arabic language, but she's a woman that fights a lot for us, and we respect her as an Arabic woman, as a woman who's from the Middle East. لقد تحدثت عن كثير من المصاعب التي مرت بها المرأة العربية، الاغتصاب والعنف الأسري وكذا وكذا وكذا. هل وصلت في يوم من الأيام إنه لماذا أنا أضعت هذا العمر بالدفاع عن هكذا أوضاع، وحتى الآن وقد وصلت إلى هذا العمر ونتمنى لك العمر المديد والطويل، هل وصلت إلى لحظة ندمت فيها عن إضاعة هذا العمر في المدافعة عن هكذا أوضاع؟ ونحن الآن لم نرى أي تغيير، يعني أصبحنا في القرن 21 ولا زلنا نتحدث عن العنف الأسري وعن الاغتصاب وكأننا في العصر الجاهلي ولم يتغير أي شيء.
لا تغير، ما هو ده مهم
ليس
قوي.
بالكثير.
مهم قوي ان احنا نلاحظ التغير الى الامام والى الخلف، لان الامل قوه، لما نفقد الامل بنضعف، ولما نشوف بس مفيش تغير. يعني هل نقول ان المرأة اليوم هل انت مثل حياتك مثل حياة والدتك؟
لا
مختلفة. هل أنا لما أقارن حياتي بحياة والدتي مختلفة خالص؟ طبعا حياة بنتي كمان أكثر تحرراً مني، لكن الجيل بتاع بنتي فيه بنات لابسين نقاب وفي بنات بيلبسوا بكيني ويعوموا. فإذا إحنا لابد من أجل التفاؤل ومن أجل الأمل إن إحنا نرى الإيجابيات. دائماً نلقط، أنا بعمل كده وده اللي بيقويني ويديني تفاؤل وأمل، ويمكن ده اللي بيخليني أعيش ما متش. اللي اللي خلاني ما متش وعشت لغايه 86 سنه ان انا عندي امل وتفاؤل وبشوف دايما الايجابيات. يعني انا بشوف دلوقتي انا باجي هنا في الاي وبي، شوف القاعه كلها تقريبا نادرا او قليل ما حد مختلف. انا عايزه حد يكون مختلف معايا يطلع يتكلم، لكن شوف الاغلبيه. انا اذكر كنت بدي محاضرات في القاهره وبلاد عربيه اخرى، كانوا بيبقوا قاعدين بالمطاوي، قاعدين المطاوي، الاخوان المسلمين والطيارات دي قاعدين بالمطاوي علشان يضربوني بالمطاوي بعد المحاضره. فيعني عايزه اقول احنا في مصر طردنا الاخوان المسلمين ثوره. فدي ايجابيات. طردنا مبارك، كل ده ولسه الشباب. انا معايا شباب. فين عمر؟ فين هو؟
ايوه
انت هنا. انا معايا شباب. انت هنا. معايا ممثل من شباب ميدان التحرير، يعني لو سمحت. انا كنت ممنوعه بقول على التغير. سؤالي هل ندمت؟ ما ندمتش ابدا ان انا كرست حياتي باللي انا عملته، ولو عادت حياتي مره هعمل كده برضه وهعمل اقوى. ليه بقى؟ عايزه عمر دقيقه او دقيقتين. عملوا حاجه اسمها ملتقى نوال الساداوي في الفتره. انا ما كنتش بقدر اتكلم في مصر، ما كنتش بقدر اعيش في مصر. الآن بنعمل ندوات شهرية وعاملين ملتقى من خلال شباب عمرهم زي عمر في العشرينات. أنا عاوزاه يتكلم دقيقة. اتكلم يا عمر.
صباح الخير. أنا فرحان جدا إن القاعة تقريبا كلهم يعني شباب مش سن بس، شباب أفكار أكتر منها سن. إحنا في القاهرة بنعمل أو في مصر عموما بنعمل نفس الفكر الثقافي الثوري. لأن عملنا ثورة يناير ما كانتش كفاية إنها تغير مصر، فإحنا حابين نغير مصر مش من العنف ولا من الثورة في الشوارع، حابين نغيرها من الفكر الأول عشان يكون في تغيير يدوم سنين أطول. وبدأنا نغيرها من خلال الثقافة ومن خلال الأعمال الفكرية، ولقينا إن في دكتورة نوال السعداوي عملها كانت سبب في قيام ثورات فكرية في العالم كله، وعشان كده أخذنا الأعمال دي وحبينا نعمل بيها ملتقى شهري. نفس الشباب زي شباب كل شهر تقريبا بيتناقش في أكتر من محافظة، والقاعات بتكون مليانة زي دلوقتي ما شاء الله، وبيكون في أفكار كتيرة جدا بنتكلم عنها اللي هي تقريبا بيقولوا حرام نتكلم عنها في غير وقتها. يعني بنتكلم عن التابوهات وبنكسرها، ودي تعتبر ثوره، لان المواضيع دي المحرمه ان الشخص يتكلم عنها حتى ولو لوحده. عشان كده يا ريت نعمل حاجات تقلل التوازي مع بعض. احنا عايشين في عالم واحد دلوقتي، المشاكل اللي بنواجهها في مصر هي اللي بنواجهها في لبنان واللي بقى موجوده دلوقتي في امريكا، يعني مبقاش في اي اختلاف خالص. فانا استاذنكم وارجو منكم انكم تنضموا حتى ولو الكترونيا. التضامن الالكتروني دلوقتي بقى اكتر من التضامن بكل اشكاله. صفحه اسمها على الفيسبوك نوال السعداوي بالعربي وبالانجليزي، وعليها 134,000 لايك تقريبا، وعليها الفيديو لايف دلوقتي شغال بتاع المحاضره، فهتعرفوا ان هي دي الصفحه الصح. واحنا خلال 3 سنوات من غير اي تمويل ولا مساعدات حكوميه ولا مؤسسيه عملنا اكثر من 30 ندوه حضرها 10,000 شخص في 5 محافظات.
نوال قلت لنا من شوي انه بتحس انت انه يعني بهي الحالة شو بتفسري لما يكون حدا بصير بس جسم قدامنا يفوز بس قبل ما نقول
هو السؤال بتاعها عايز وقت الحقيقة. عايز وقت عشان أرد عليه بعمق. صعب قوي إن أنا أرد إزاي لما الواحد بيموت الروح بتطلع وأين تذهب. يعني ده عايز مش هقدر أجاوب عليه دلوقتي، لكن أو بعدين أبقى أجاوب عليه بعدين عشان عايز تقويم.
دكتور نوال، أول شيء أنا كثير مبسوطة قادرة أسألك هذا السؤال ده يكون معي. أنا بقول لو بالعالم العربي في فكرين مثل فكر نوال السعداوي كنا بنكون في ألف خير. سؤالي لإلي إنه عم بتقولي التحرش الجنسي بوليتيكال والحجاب بوليتيكال والسكس بوليتيكال وكلهم بوليتيكال. أنا كمواطنة بعيش حياتي عادي بروح على الشغل وبرجع، كيف فيني حارب هيدا الشيء؟ لأنه اللي خلقوا الحالة السياسية هن بشر مثل ليش هن أقوى مني؟ وشو فينا نعمل نحن نقدر نحارب كل هول الأشياء؟ والشق الثاني من سؤالي بقول إنك درست الريليجن ل10 سنين أنت وتقارني بيناتهم، فيك تخبريني شو طلع معك؟
أنا بنصح، إحنا كلنا بنورث. أنا بقيت مسلمة عشان أبويا مسلم. أنتِ مثلا بقيتي قبطية أو مسيحية عشان أبوكي مسيحي. إحنا بنورث الدين كده. مش كده؟ وبعدين نقتل بعض ونضطهد بعض، وكمان لما يبقى في قانون زواج يمنع زي اللي عندنا في مصر قانون أحوال شخصية، لما بنت مسيحية تحب واحد مسلم ما يقدروش يتجوزوا، وإذا عملوا علاقة يقتلوهم ويحرقوا الكنايس، مع إنهم وارثين الدين. يعني ملناش فضل في إن أنا أبقى مسلمة أو مسيحية. فموضوع الدين ده خطير، وأنصح إنكم تقروا قبل ما تؤمنوا، قبل ما تقول أنا مسلم أو مسيحي أو يهودي أو بوذي. اقرا الكتاب بتاعك والكتب الأخرى، ولا يمكن تعرف القرآن إلا لما تقارنه بالإنجيل وبالتوراة. لأن لازم تقارن. المعرفة بتيجي من المقارنة، الأدب المقارن. حتى ما تعرفش هل الرواية دي كويسة ولا لا إلا لما تقارنها. كذلك الدين لازم تقارنه بالأديان الأخرى وتدرس. طبعا في ناس يقول لك يا وأنا عندي عمر. لا، عندنا وقت طويل جدا لدراسة الأديان ولدراسة أي حاجة وربط الطب بالأديان. يعني أنا عمري طول عمري عندي وقت عشان أقرأ وأدرس. إحنا بنضيع وقتنا في الحياة الاجتماعية، فلازم ندرس علشان نقدر نفكر بطريقة موضوعية، ولا نتصور إن الدين بتاعي هو الحقيقة المطلقة وبقية الأديان كفرة. لازم